Segundo, California. Some years past, I created a good living talking about inexpensive cars for any website that I won't name his or her head honchos changed our contracts to screw us from residuals prior to laying us off. Not that I'm bitter. Anyway, my yearly update within the pros and cons of America's cheapest cars was hugely popular, and I became something of your expert on what cars deliver the best value for 15 grand or less and those don't. Believe it or not, the Accent was usually about the don't list, largely considering that the Nissan Versa was nevertheless almost impossible to beat, but I thought this was well before the redesigned 2018 model made its debut. When I learned there were a stripped down $15, 8802018 Hyundai Accent say arriving, I jumped with the opportunity to write the review. If you haven't driven a low-priced car shortly, the Accent say provides something of the shock. For one thing, it's pretty decent they are driving. Power comes from a direct-injected 1.6-liter 4 using a healthy 130 horsepower on tap. It'll scoot okay if you keep it around the boil. The same model receives a manual transmission. An automatic costs $1,000 more, but it's 6 speeds rather than the expected cheap car 5. The featherlight clutch, easy if slightly long shift throws, and also ratio SP watch give you a perfect counterpoint to the people who say a manual is way too much trouble in traffic. It even carries a hill holder function that keeps it from rolling back on inclines. EPA fuel economy for your stick is 31 miles per gallon combined, but I saw about 37 miles per gallon within my regular routine of speeding on freeways, cruising quietly with the suburbs, and using stop-and-go traffic, feeling sorry for myself and wondering why I ever moved clear of western New York, where absolutely nothing is ever more than the usual 15-minute drive away, provided you don't hit a deer. The chassis is not a strong point, that has less regarding the Accent's price compared to the fact that it's a Hyundai. The South Korean automaker merely has recently straightened out its steering systems, which directional goodness has yet to produce its way right down to the Accent, which wanders annoyingly around the freeway. I'm not looking for your precision of your Honda S2000, but I prefer a car that goes where I point it. Sound insulation is rather good as well as the suspension is decently arranged, though body roll together with the imprecise steering feel might make sudden sharp curves a bit of the sphincter tightening experience. For 95% in the driving the majority of us do, though, the Accent is unfailingly pleasant. Furthermore, the standard equipment list is nowhere close to as parsimonious you may expect. Thanks to the economies of scale, the same model is sold with most on the equipment that buyers of pricier Accents would like: power windows, mirrors and locks, Bluetooth phone connectivity, cruise control, a rear view camera, even AC. The back seat within reason roomy as well as the warranty is epic, offering 5 years 60,000 miles of coverage around the whole car and 10 years 100,000 miles around the powertrain. The stereo is actually basic, AM/FM Bluetooth only, without the need of XM, Apple CarPlay, or Android Auto, and also the wheels are stamped steelies with plastic covers. Still, the Accent say is hardly the motoring equal to living in a cardboard box. Equipment aside, the Accent presents quite nicely. The exterior is handsome enough as well as the interior plastics and fabrics are of shockingly quality. The cabin trim comes to in pricier versions in the Accent, and most from the switches and dials work together with smoothness and precision. It really doesn't seem like a base model car. Of course, you possibly can argue that the Hyundai Accent isn't a base model car. In terms of equipment, trim and price, it parallels mid-level models on the competition. The aforementioned Nissan Versa, Now that is an effective base model car. The El Cheapo Versa S gets black plastic door handles and side mirrors, crank-down windows, manual door looks, and cable-operated climate controls who go lunk-a-thunk whenever you change from heat to defrost. No cruise. No split folding rear seat. No USB ports. The transmission is surely an old-school 5-speed manual, and also the interior principal purpose is by folks who scoured the earth to discover the cheapest-looking plastic recognized to humankind. The silver-colored trim rings that surround the shifter and stereo in pricier Versas are actually deep-sixed, because who the hell you think you are? Nissan even limits the bed's base model's color palette to black, white, silver and gray. You want a red one? Buzz off, cheapskate. The Versa S does get AC and Bluetooth, again, economies of scale. And just like the Accent, the Versa drives well enough to generate you ask why save money? It's reasonably quick, acceptably comfortable, surprisingly roomy and pleasantly frugal. Compared to the Accent, it's noisier though the steering is marginally better. Most importantly, the least expensive Versa will be a lot cheaper versus the cheapest Accent, at $12,995, it's around $3,000 less. And it turns out that when you equip a Versa with the stuff you get involved in Accent, say having an automatic transmission, Nissan doesn't provide a stick in mid-level models, the two main cars cost a comparable. Thanks to my days with BrandX.com, I can provide the quick lowdown around the best from the rest. The Chevrolet Spark comes nicely equipped for less money versus the Accent, but it's a significantly smaller car. Ditto the Mitsubishi Mirage, that's comically slow and watchful to operate a vehicle but gets amazing fuel consumption, despite the presence of the foot-off-floor driving style its microscopic engine demands. The aging Ford Fiesta could be the fun tow-drive selection for enthusiasts on a tight budget, whilst the Accent's corporate sibling, the slightly less expensive Brio, presents in the same way nicely because Hyundai comes that has a better stereo. My point is that as the 2018 Hyundai Accent say isn't the least expensive of least expensive cars, it's also not the lowest priced of cheap cars, in the event you get my meaning. It's a good value for $16,000 along with a car that you just certainly won't mind driving. 2018 Hyundai Accent specifications. Price: $15,880 BAS tested. Engine: 1.6 liters DOC 16 valve I-4130 HP at 6,300 RPM. 119 lb-ft at 4,850 RPM. Transmission: 6-speed manual. Layout: 4-door, 5-passenger, front engine, FWD sedan. EPA mileage: 2,837 city. LXWXH: 172.6 by 68.1 by 57.1. Wheelbase: 101.6 inches. Weight: 2,502 pounds, 060 miles per hour, NA. Top speed: NA.